Hey guys, it's me Astrid, and it's time to give you a semi-hydroponic update. First off, this orchid here is my Colmenara Wildcat. It's my first orchid I ever got to rebloom. I rebloomed it early this year, and I'm so happy because it gave me more flowers. Anyway, enough Colmenara Wildcat. Let's talk about what is semi-hydroponic. We're going to hop over to one of my orchids and have a look. So semi-hydroponic is an alternative way to grow a lot of your orchids. People grow Paphiopedilums, Phragmipediums, Phalaenopsis, Dendrobiums, all kinds, Cattleyas, everything in semi-hydroponic. And what it is you use these clay pellets called leca or hydroton pellets or whatever, just Google semi-hydroponic pellets, and you use this as an inorganic media for your plants. What you do is you put them in a pot that is got no ventilation except 2 holes, and the bottom of the pot is a reservoir of water that you just keep filled. Flush the pot once a week with clean, clear water so that all the salt buildup from fertilizer and whatnot gets rinsed away, because these do have an issue building up salts. And other than that, you can leave these potted in these pellets for I think 2 years or so before you have to repot. And another benefit of these pellets is that you can boil them and reuse them with other plants. You can sterilize them. They don't break down like other kinds of media. If you'd like to know more about growing orchids semi-hydroponic, check out firstraise.com. But that's enough of a little mini lesson about it. Let's get into the update, which is what so many of you have been pestering me about the last few days. Sorry I took so long, but I've gotten enough nudges that it's time. Let's look at this phal. So this is one I found basically in the trash, and it had all these roots already. But the roots are nice, green, plump, healthy. None of them are dying. None of them are doing anything questionable. And I potted it with pellets along the bottom so the roots would sit, the roots would sit above this reservoir. And these roots just stay nice and green. And when this reservoir dries up, I rinse water through the pot and I refill that reservoir and the plant stays happy. This phal has firm leaves. Phals that have those firm kind of leaves that are bendable, but they just bounce right back, are healthy. This one's healthy. And the new leaf it's grown since I put it in semi-hydroponic is actually wider than this old leaf, and maybe it will get longer, but only time will tell. I have another orchid, another phal in semi-hydroponic that's putting out a new leaf, but I don't think this guy is a very vigorous grower. But before I had it in semi-hydroponic, these leaves were flimsy and tired, and now they're that firm kind of Phalaenopsis leaf that we like to see in a well-hydrated plant. So they're doing pretty well, but I think this needs a few more months before it's all settled in. Let's go on to this Cattleya. This is that green spotted Cattleya that I got at the show recently. It's really nice. And I put it in semi-hydroponic and I left the back bulbs just hanging out of the pot because eventually they're going to dry up, so I can just clip them off. And they're not going to put out new roots, so I'm not concerned with them. But I'm keeping this reservoir full, and this Cattleya is just putting out 3 new root nubbins within about a few weeks. So it looks like there's a 4th. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And this eye is getting a little more plump, so we're just going to see what happens. Yes, so that's exciting. This guy's doing well. Another group of orchids I have in semi-hydroponic are my Dendrobiums. Whoops, I'm bumping everything. My Dendrobium pulchellum, I think it's a species that I'm not really equipped to properly care for, but it does seem like it's been growing since I put it in semi-hydroponic, but it does have a lot of leaf tip dieback. I don't know how to exactly care for this species, so I'm not going to really bother myself with worrying too much. I'm just going to let the plant play out how it wants to. But if you look at this, I know Danny says in her environment semi-hydroponic pellets don't keep the media moist up to the top. I am dropping everything today. But if you look here, these beads feel dry, but the roots are really hydrated here, and we have even a new root growing out. So though semi-hydroponic in some environments gets too dry on top, in my environment it seems to keep the roots wet and moist all the way up to the top, but not so wet that they die off, which is good. Next we have my two big old Dendrobium Phalaenopsis orchids. These guys are doing great. The new growths are coming along. They're about half as tall as the older canes, and they're handling it well. This one's putting out lots and lots of new roots, though I can't say I'm seeing many around the sides of the pot, and same with this guy. Not seeing many new roots around the side of the pot. They are just kind of putting out lots of new baby roots from the new growths, and that's kind of typical and what you would expect. Now a cool thing is this guy, so let's take it over to my messy table. I've been studying a lot, so it's messy. Now this guy is kind of a rescue seedling from eBay, and this guy had only these 3 growths when I got it, and then it started putting out this new growth, which is just taking off. I put moss over the top because it's a kind of a seedling, so I wanted to encourage it to grow some more roots, and it is growing roots like mad. Look at this. This root goes all the way down the side. I don't think we have any other roots really going down the side, but just check out these roots bursting out of this new growth. This Cattleya, it's a chocolate drop kodama, not cocodama, thank you for the correction. It really likes this semi-hydroponic environment, and I predict a healthy, happy plant. This growth is getting plumper and plumper compared to the old growths, which are less plump. So this one's doing really well. Let's move on to a couple others. Who else do I have in semi-hydroponic? I think this is going to be, well, here. We can look at this guy also. This is a very, very, very thirsty plant. It's not an orchid, but it is the Hypoestus or polka dot plant. If you live in Australia, you might also recognize this as a weed and an invasive species, but in my home, I think they're pretty and I like to grow them. So this one, the reservoir was too shallow, so I put it in another pot of water so it can absorb more water, because these plants are so thirsty and the roots are so numerous in the bottom since I put it in here. Of course, I'm going to make a mess. The roots are so numerous in here that they suck up the water really fast. So when you do semi-hydroponic, if you have a very thirsty plant, you might want to make a deeper reservoir or use a taller pot of the same diameter to give it more time between when you have to refill that reservoir. Now I'm going to show you the guys who are doing like absolutely the best in semi-hydroponic. And that are my little Cattleyas. I think these are Laylo Cattleyas that I got at Trader Joe's. They're doing phenomenal. Look at this guy. He's put out all these new roots. There were no roots on this orchid when I started it in semi-hydroponic. Now it has a big new growth. And it just has roots upon roots coming out of here. Let's see if I can give this pot a little spin around. There's roots going down. There's actually roots going down into the water, and they're not rotting. You can see it on multiple sides. This orchid really, really likes this. And additionally, I put this in semi-hydroponic maybe a month or so ago, but this orchid is already basically firm in this pot. I'm trying to lift it up, and it's not really lifting. I'm not actually going to do it, but when you have a plant that is steady in the pot, that means it's got a good established root system, it's doing healthy, and this is definitely an example. And we even have root branching here. This one has another example of roots staying moist all the way up to the top. You can see that this root is green up here. So this plant is actually keeping moisture pretty high up in this in these clay pellets. So it can keep the roots kind of moist on top, but you have to again check what works best in your environment. But this one also basically had no roots. All these roots that you see under here are new roots, newly grown roots. This guy doesn't really have any around the sides yet either, but it is just developing a little more slowly than its neighbor over here. But again, both of these are doing fantastically in here. Now there's one setup I have in semi-hydroponic that is not working so well, and that is my Dendrobium kingianum cakeys. I just have papers everywhere. Oh my god. So, pardon me. So the Dendrobium kingianum cakeys, this one is kind of staying small and skinny and not doing so well here. And this one seems to be growing, but maybe not as much as I would like. Though this one is kind of getting bigger and putting a couple new roots in here. But these guys are kind of slower to adjust to this semi-hydroponic environment. And I think, I can't really tell you why I think it is. Maybe the pot doesn't have a big enough diameter and this cork is taking up so much room, so it's interfering with the wicking ability of these pellets to wick the water up. Or maybe these guys just need more water as cakeys, so that's why they're not doing as well. But honestly, the guy that I bought a bunch of orchids from, he had all his seedlings growing in semi-hydroponic and they were doing very well. So I can't offer you much more insight than this, but I can tell you that my orchids growing in semi-hydroponic are doing great. I had some oncidiums in semi-hydroponic that were throwing out roots like mad, but I sold those guys. And really, semi-hydroponic works for a lot of different kinds of orchids. You can find forums around the internet that describe people, like I said, growing paphs and frags in semi-hydroponic with great success, wonderful blooming. It's a method that works for a lot of orchids. You just have to see if it works in your environment. And I know Miss Orchid Girl Danny doesn't like it in her environment because hers gets very, very cold in the winter and might even freeze, so that can be bad with the water reservoirs. But in my environment, I grow it inside my home where it's warm and it's great. The other thing that I'm kind of struggling with right now is that I don't know what to do with the dendrobiums I put in semi-hydroponic that need a winter rest. Like, how do I water that? Do I sprinkle some water over? Do I just not water them? What do I do with those guys? Because the wicking ability in my environment is very good, and I don't know if they're going to stay too wet all winter and be mad at me come springtime. So we're just going to have to see. But the other dendrobiums don't need a winter rest, so they're doing freaking great, as you saw. Alright, I hope this was a good update. I know it was a little scatterbrained, but I hope you got to see kind of what you wanted to see and get a better insight on whether this method would work for you. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Happy growing. Have a nice day. Bye.